been so, so good to me. Sing it out! And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. No, it chases me down, but still I'll find leaves at 99. And I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. No, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Be reminded that what God did for you was reckless because He loves you. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. But I found no words, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Sing it out! And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. No, it chases me down, but still I'm found, leaves at 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yes, Lord. Shout these next words out, there's no shadow. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Yeah, come on! There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming out to me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming out to me. There's no wall you won't
welcome to another week of doing church together. It's hard to believe, but this is already our 7th week of doing church together this way. Wow. You know, I think it's a really good time to remind ourselves that church is important now as it ever was. It looks a little different, but church continues to roll along. You know, we've lost a lot of stuff in this season, and we've been missing out on a lot in this season, but church isn't one of them. And I'm so thankful that we get to still meet like this and worship Jesus together. You know, speaking of loss, I want to talk to you guys for a few minutes about unexpected loss. Not loss like where you lose something and you get it back, like when you lose your car keys in the house, or when you lose your homework inside your backpack, or when you lose your cell phones at the beach, just like this guy. But we're gonna talk about unexpected loss where you can't get it back. Last week, Darren talked to us about King David, a young man from biblical times who waited 20 years to be king after he was told that he was going to be the king. And through that story, we talked about unexpected waiting. Well, today, I want to talk to you guys about unexpected loss. You know, if you look in the Bible, there are so many men and women who lost a lot. Some lost their families, some lost their friends, some lost their homes, and some even lost their health. You know, even through a story of a man named Job, he lost everything that he had. Well, today we want to talk about actually a woman, and who even has a book in the Bible named after her. And I can't tell you guys the whole story in detail today, but I want to encourage you guys to read that story for yourself in the book of Ruth in the Old Testament. You know, it actually has 4 chapters, and it'll take maximum, 20 minutes? And I know you guys have time right now, right? So I want to encourage you guys, check out the book, 4 chapters. It'll only take 20 minutes, and you'll be really encouraged and challenged by this story. There are 4 key characters that I want you guys to remember. First is Naomi, Ruth, Boaz, and Orpah. Not Oprah, Orpah, all right? Okay, so here we go with the story. I'm gonna tell you guys a super duper short version of this, all right? So 1,000 years ago, there was a woman named Naomi. She had a husband and she had 2 sons, and her 2 sons each had a wife. One was Ruth and one was Orpah. Now, one day, Naomi's husband passes away and she experiences unexpected loss. But the story doesn't stop there. We jump 10 years later, and her 2 sons all of a sudden passes away, giving Naomi another unexpected loss and leaving also her 2 daughters-in-law widows, like how Naomi was. And they are expecting a great loss and pain during this time. Naomi is devastated. Naomi questions God. Naomi questions her future. And then she decides that she wants the best for her daughters-in-law and tells her daughters-in-law, hey guys, you guys can go back to your homelands and let's all start our lives again. Let's start fresh again. So Orpah hears this and she agrees to what Naomi says and she goes back to her homeland. But actually Ruth did not go back to her homeland. And Ruth told Naomi, Naomi, wherever you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. So Ruth was basically saying, you know what? I'm gonna still stick with you. Let's go through this pain together. So Ruth goes to Naomi's homeland together with Naomi. Now enters Boaz. Boaz is a relative of Naomi, and he was a wealthy landowner. He had a lot of workers who worked in his fields, and Naomi went up to him and asked, hey, can Ruth work on your field? And he agreed. So Ruth started working on Boaz's field. And as she was working there, Boaz noticed how faithful she was to Naomi and how much of a hard worker she was. So you know what ended up happening? They actually got married together and they had a son. And guess who this son is? This son is actually the grandfather of King David. King David, who we talked about last week. Isn't that crazy, guys? Out of tremendous loss and pain, something amazing happens. Wow. You know, we are all going through unexpected time of loss right now. And it's not easy. Some of you guys are bummed that you don't have 8th grade promotion anymore, or that you don't have your senior graduation anymore. Or some of you guys didn't even get to go visit the college that you wanted to visit during this time. Or some of you may have lost your joy. Joy because we've all lost our freedom to go wherever we want, to go meet whoever we want, whenever we want. And we've lost that freedom right now. You know, for me personally, as an extrovert, I love meeting people in person. I love meeting people like every day, weekly, right? But in times like this, it's been actually really difficult for me being at home, not being able to see people in face to face, but only through virtually. So let's talk a little bit about loss, unexpected loss. Ruth's story actually teaches us 4 lessons, and let's dive right in. Number 1, loss hurts, and that's okay. You know, in fact, the bigger the loss, bigger the pain. And Naomi experienced this great pain in her life of not only losing her husband, but her 2 sons. And you know what she did? She actually didn't just keep it inside. She was honest about it. And she was honest about it to people around her and to God. And in Ruth 4:20-21, it says, "The Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." Naomi is hurting and she is upset at God. And she's not afraid to tell how she feels, but she's honest. She is verbalizing how she felt honestly before God. You know, some of you guys are experiencing loss in this season where you're not able to have your birthday parties. You're not able to see your friends at all, but just talk to each other over phone or through virtually. And it's not easy. But I want to encourage you guys, just like Naomi did, be honest about it to God. You know, God is big enough to handle all the pains and losses that you experience and tell Him about. So I want to encourage you guys, tell God about your pain, just like how Naomi did. And number 2 is this: everybody responds to loss differently, and that's okay. In this story, Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah all responded differently. Orpah decided to go back to her homeland, and Naomi decided to go back to her homeland in the midst of her pain and bitterness. And Ruth decided to follow her mother-in-law Naomi to her homeland, and she follows Naomi and starts working for Boaz over there. And everybody responds to loss differently, and that's actually okay. Sometimes something that is really painful for you may not be that painful to someone else. Or something that causes one of your friends to need a good shoulder to cry on may not be a big deal for you. And just like that, everybody deals with pain differently, and that's totally okay. And here is lesson number 3. In the middle of loss, don't lose sight of God. You know, a minute ago, I talked to you guys about Naomi and how Naomi was dealing with questioning and doubting God during this time. She was in a big pain and she had a huge loss in her life. But one thing that she actually did not stop doing was that she did not stop looking to God. She was being honest to God, but she didn't stop looking to God. You know, it's kind of like our family. Sometimes we have doubts, sometimes we have disagreements with our families, but that doesn't mean you quit being a family member. If they do something wrong to you, you don't go like, oh, well, let's not be family anymore, right? That's not what we do. And just like that, Naomi continued to look to God while being honest, while being able to share her feelings. You know, this is a great lesson for us. You know, we are in a tough season right now, and you may be wondering, where is God in during this time? Where is God in my life right now? You know, when Naomi was in the middle of pain and loss, God wasn't gone. He was actually right next to her. He was right where He always is. And God hasn't taken His eyes off of you either. So let's not take our eyes off of God during this season, but continue to look to Him in this time of pain, guys. Well, here's lesson number 4. Loss always leads to something new. You know, Ruth couldn't undo her loss. Ruth lost her husband and returned to her mother-in-law's homeland. But that wasn't the end of the story. She ends up remarrying, right? And her loss led to something new. And there's a really great Bible verse that reminds us that God promises that everything has a way of working out for His kids, that even tremendous loss can lead to something new and wonderful. It says in Romans 8:28, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose for them. Being a follower of Jesus and being a part of God's family doesn't prevent us from loss. God doesn't promise us that we will never experience pain or loss, but He does promise us that He will be with us when we are experiencing pain and loss. You know, He was with Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah, and He's with you too. And just like He did them, He promises to work it all out for good. The loss we are going through now will lead to something new, something good. So here's the thought for the week, which is something really important to remember. During unexpected loss, let's expect God to do something good. I hope you guys were encouraged by this word today. Thank you for joining us and hope to see you guys next week.
Hey SSM, we're so glad to join you guys this weekend. I encourage you guys wherever you're at to worship with us as we play a couple songs. So here we go.